If you own a trades or contracting business and you've ever looked at your bank balance and thought, how can we be profitable but never have any money in the bank? Then this video is going to make a lot of sense to you. This is one of the most common frustrations I hear from business owners, especially once the company gets past a certain size. On paper or inside your accounting software, your QuickBooks or your Xero, things look fine. It's showing you're making a profit month on month. The phone's ringing, work's coming in, there's work in the diary, but in real life, the bank balance never seems to reflect that. And nothing stresses you out more because you're being told you're doing well, but you're not showing it. I invest in UK-based contracting companies, which means I spend a lot of time reviewing businesses that look solid on the surface, but when you dig into the numbers, the cash flow tells a very different story. I've started businesses, bought them, grown them, invested in them, sold them, and I've also saved around 10 to 12 companies that were on the verge of going bust, most of which were contracting businesses actually. So when I talk about cash flow, I'm not talking from theory or from a book I've read like some of the business coaches you see out there. I'm talking from what I see repeatedly in the real world, inside real businesses. One of the biggest misunderstandings I see is the belief that profit automatically turns into cash. Profit means cash, because believe me, it 1000% doesn't. Profit is an accounting concept. Cash flow is a timing concept. Most contracts businesses struggle, not because they don't make a profit, but because the timing of the money coming in and the timing of the money going out is completely misaligned. And on top of that, they usually don't make as much profit as they think they will when they actually quote the job in the first place. So what usually happens is this. The business starts small, starts growing, more jobs are taken on, staff numbers increase, and overheads rise quietly in the background without you realizing. But the way the cash moves through the business never really changes. Owners still look at the bank balance to judge how well they're doing. We all know what it's like to go on your business banking app just to see if you can pay the bills or not. So they still react rather than plan, especially when it comes to cash. They still assume that if the business is profitable, things will work themselves out from a cash perspective. And from my experience, particularly with the turnaround work I've been brought in to do, it doesn't work that way. Profit stops turning into cash, then those PAYE and VAT bills start coming around far too quickly to keep up with. And before you know it, you're on an HMRC payment plan. The cash gets absorbed by slow paying customers, wages, rising costs, and poor payment terms, which is one that's really overlooked. From the outside, it looks like the business is working, but from the inside, as you know as the owner, it feels like there's a noose around your neck that gets tighter every single month, and you run out at the end of the month. This is the point where owners start to blame themselves, as I see quite often. They think they're bad with money, or they think they should understand this better. They think they've missed something obvious. But actually, most contractors were never taught how to run a business. So why would you know this stuff? You probably started out on the tools and set up a limited company. No one ever taught you this stuff. They were taught how to do the work and how to keep the customers happy and how to win more work and how to network, but no one's ever sat them down and explained how cash flow actually works once a business grows past a certain point. Nobody explained how growth can actually make cash flow worse before it makes it better, which is something I see all the time. So owners end up managing a growing business, a growing contracting business, using instincts that worked when the business was smaller, when they were sole trader or they were one-man band, but don't necessarily work now. And that's where the stress comes from. So I see owners take on more work and try to fix cash flow issues, which often makes the problem worse by chasing that work. They just stretch themselves thinner. They take on jobs with poor payment terms, just chase the revenue, or they accept lower margins just to keep the cash coming in so they can actually pay their staff that month. And over time, all of this compounds and things get worse and worse, and you get more stress and stress. And the frustrating part is most of these businesses are not broken. They're completely salvageable. In fact, they're good businesses that could be super profitable. They've usually got good customers, they have decent margins somewhere in the business, even if it's not translating to cash. But what they lack is visibility, systems, and the knowledge of good actually looks like when it comes to running a business properly. Once you truly understand how cash moves through your business and you implement the right systems, things can change really quickly. When you see every pound leaving your bank account months ahead of time, instead of relying on checking your online banking, decisions become a lot easier to make and a lot calmer and a lot less reactive. The owner stops reacting and starts thinking and strategizing about investments in the business. And the stress really starts to lift off the owner's shoulders. This is why in the short to medium term, cash flow matters more than profit, in my opinion. Because profit tells you whether the business works in theory, but cash flow tells you whether it works in real life. Because if you haven't got enough cash to pay the bills, your business is going to die. If you run out of cash, game over. This is also why when I'm looking at a business to invest in, cash flow is one of the first things I focus on. A business that can fund itself comfortably is a completely different proposition to invest in than one that looks good on paper but relies on the owner constantly juggling payments from the outside. Because if the owner's having to do that, it's probably not an investable business. But the good news is most owners they're not a million miles away from fixing this. They're usually just missing a few key pieces. Once these pieces are in place, the business starts to feel calmer, more predictable, and far less stressful to run, particularly when you start to understand cash flow. And that's when owners start to enjoy the business again, rather than feeling trapped in it and dreading those Sunday nights when you're worried about going to work in the morning. If you feel like your business would benefit from having proper cash flow systems in place, or you'd benefit from speaking to someone who bought, grown and sold multiple companies, then every week I open up some time for one or two businesses, just do a quick audit of their business, do a deep dive where I can highlight to the owner the main bottlenecks I see using my experience from an investor's lens. And we look at where the cash flow or profit's being constrained and what's stopping the business from feeling as stable and as predictable as it should, and what's stopping it from actually getting to the next level. But because I'm running my own portfolio companies, I only do one or two of these a week. So if that sounds useful, have a look at the link in the description if there are any slots left. If not, and you got value from this video, please like and subscribe and share it with anyone you know who owns a contracting business, and I'll keep putting the content out there to show people how to fix cash flow, improve profits, and win better quality work.